Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and this is my review of the last episode of Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. And where the hell do I begin? This episode was a nitpicker's gold mine. This is such a mess, but kind of entertaining unintentionally, meaning, I'm a fan of unintentional comedy, movies like The Room, which are so bad they are good, and so this really falls into that category in my opinion. It was so stupid and yet kind of entertaining because of its stupidity. Also, it did have a whole bunch of eye candy, and I am a lover of special effects and space battles and stuff like that. So part of me, I have to admit, did kind of enjoy some parts of this episode, even though it was kind of done in that style of over-exaggerated, It was so dense, every single image has so many things going on, that kind of style. The same thing people complain about in many modern movies, and I'll probably do a whole video about the problem of today, how too many special effects can actually ruin a movie or a TV show, because in the past, before they had the ability to make so many special effects, they had to fill the movie with something, and so they filled it with an actual story, some good dialogue, some characters, character development, stuff like that. And nowadays, because they have the ability to make so many special effects and they think that's what the audience wants, then they just fill the whole thing with just that, and it's all visual over substance. And so that's a very big problem in a lot of movies, in my opinion. And maybe I would have had a different opinion when I was younger, because I do remember I loved special effects. I did want them to be more special effects, more battles in space and stuff like that. And I cared less about the story, but I think with age and maybe wisdom, I realized that what really made good shows and movies memorable were not the special effects. It was if they had a good story and good characters, that's what really made it memorable. And so that's the mistake of many movies and shows today, that they think the audience only cares about the special effects, and often the plot is written just to connect all the dots, just to connect all the special effects, all the action scenes together, and it doesn't come first, and that's a very huge problem in my opinion. And it was the same here in the show, even though they did try to include some bits, so, it was kind of very ambitious, so I have to give them some points. They did try to have some character moments and stuff like that, so it wasn't totally about the action. They did at least try to do something beside that. So I now want to get to the actual details of this episode, and also in the context of the whole season, I think it's really a huge mess. So many things don't make sense if you really think about them. For example, the 7 signals. They said that they detected all 7 signals from the beginning of Season 2. And they even showed us a few times a holographic map of the whole galaxy, in which we saw the signals in the galaxy with presumably their exact location. They even compared it to the drawings of Spock as a child, and they said he knew their exact location in space. And yet suddenly they follow on each signal as it appears, and yet didn't they detect it before, so they didn't know where the signals are. And even the Klingons say that they saw those omens in space, so that means that the speed of light somehow reached them already, even though some of them were on the other side of the galaxy. I kind of presume they saw all of that with some kind of subspace telescopes, and so the speed of light is not a factor. That's why I didn't really complain about that. But now it's revealed they didn't really know where the signals are, even though they did saw them on a map. And now each signal appears on itself, and then they follow it, and it's all like close to Federation space. They can reach most of them with the normal warp engines, except that one which was on the other side of the galaxy with that colony of people from Earth before the nuclear war. All the other ones were either in Klingon space, or the Kelpian planet, or the asteroid with the starship which crashed during the war, so everything was in the vicinity of the Federation. And we've seen only 5 of them so far, so they explained the final 2 in this episode. I'll get to that. And also it makes me laugh how they suddenly can build a whole new Red Angel suit, and yet now they cannot simply transfer the data into the suit. They have to take the whole ship into the future, so that Section 31 cannot get it. And it still makes me laugh how no one thought about first using the spore drive to get away from Section 31 ships, or to hide somewhere before they disable the spore jump to charge the time crystal. The fact that no one even thought about that really makes me laugh. That's probably the single most stupid thing in the whole season, in my opinion, the way they fail to realize they can use the spore jump to solve all their problems. And also it's funny how they cannot get the rest of Starfleet to help them. It's as if the rest of Starfleet doesn't exist. We also got a scene with Mr. No Response, in which Saru asks him to contact Starfleet, and he says he cannot because the subspace relays are being jammed. and that's why they will not get any reinforcements. And that really makes me laugh, especially since they have apparently 200 shuttles now. So why can't they send someone on a shuttle? And we also know all the shuttles have a warp drive now, so why not simply send a crew member on a shuttle to fly back to Earth and to explain what happened to the president of the Federation, so that he'll send all of Starfleet to help fight Section 31 ships. So why don't they simply use a shuttle to send a message to Starfleet if subspace isn't working? And they have about 200 shuttles suddenly. They have infinite amount of shuttles, and even toward the end of the episode when all the shuttles were outside fighting, we still saw there was another empty shuttle in the shuttle bay, which Spock takes later, and so they have plenty of unlimited shuttles apparently. So I guess that explains Voyager, because you know how everybody made fun of Voyager always losing shuttles and replacing them with no problem. So I guess all ships simply have an infinite amount of shuttles stored inside, and it's not a problem. You can pull them out whenever you want them. So anyway, only the Enterprise is helping the Discovery. All the rest of Starfleet apparently is totally oblivious to everything that's happening, and no one bothers to maybe warn Earth about all of this. No one on Earth knows about this big threat, so if something happens to Discovery, then no one in the rest of the Federation will know anything about it and will not do anything to stop them, so it all depends on Discovery. So why the hell didn't they send someone on a shuttle to warn the rest of Starfleet? This is just laughably bad writing. And then we have this massive jumbled space battle with hundreds of shuttles and probes, and they launch everything they have basically. And it's really in the JJ style, in the Star Wars prequel style. And I have to admit I did kind of enjoy some parts of it, because it was expensive, it was kind of cinematic, it was well done, there were specific shots which I did kind of like. I did like the shot when Michael wore the Red Angel suit and she jumped out of the shuttle bay into space, and we see all the action in space around her. That was kind of cool, I have to admit. It also kind of made me nostalgic. It reminded me of a computer game I once played as a kid. I think it was called MDK, in which you were wearing some kind of spacesuit and also kind of skydiving and having to dodge aliens trying to get you and stuff like that. And it was really kind of cool looking, so that scene really reminded me of that in a good way. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of scenes in this episode which were very obviously a rip-off of a whole bunch of science fiction movies, and I'll probably do compilations of all of that on my other channel to directly show the similarities. Like there was a fight in the corridor in which gravity shifted and they were on the walls and then on the ceiling and then back on the floor, and so it was the same kind of scene as the one in Inception. And some of the space battle was similar to Ender's Game, how they used all those shuttles to protect Michael so that she can reach her target. They used all the shuttles as a cocoon around her, so that was similar to Ender's Game. And after Michael went into the wormhole, it looked a lot like the movie Interstellar after that guy went into a black hole. There was kind of similar type of visual effects. So this series is always kind of ripping off visual stuff from other science fiction movies, but at least it means they watch those other movies. So they lack imagination, but at least they don't lack some taste. I mean, they did apparently like a lot of science fiction movies, which I also liked, and they're kind of imitating them. And so that's why I do get some enjoyment out of it. And also I have to give credit to the last scene in which we see the Discovery going through the wormhole. They did a special effect which was very similar to the one in the motion picture when the Enterprise accidentally went through some wormhole. I think they should have also did something similar to that sequence in Star Trek 4, in which when they were time traveling they were seeing all kinds of weird stuff, all kinds of morphing faces and stuff like that. If they actually did something like that, part of me would kind of appreciate that. That would make me nostalgic. Also, it's supposed to be set in the same universe, so it would make sense to have similar visual special effects if the same kind of thing is happening, like time travel. So I would actually appreciate if they do try to be similar with other Star Trek movies. But all the times they kind of visually rip off other movies, I'm not sure what I think about that. It's kind of a mixed bag. It kind of makes me laugh, so once again it's like unintentional comedy. It's kind of fun to recognize where they take each part from. So anyway, I kind of jumped to the end of the episode. Let me backpedal to the beginning. So we have a scene of everybody trying to build the Red Angel suit in the last moment, because they didn't think about first using the spore jump to get far away before they did all of this. And we see a whole bunch of white males messing it up, and the women have to tell them how they messed up. And I really laughed at that scene, because you know how people complain about the show being feminist, being social justice warrior, and so it always makes me laugh to kind of notice scenes like that. I'll probably do a whole bunch of compilations like that. And also Captain Pike always gets dominated by another woman, and we have a scene in this episode in which the Admiral takes his place to save the ship when Pike wants to sacrifice himself to disarm a torpedo, which gets stuck in the hull of the ship. And then Admiral Kathleen Kennedy, also known as Holdo, also known as Rose Tico, I guess, she doesn't let him sacrifice himself, and she does it herself instead. That was also very silly visually, because they show a torpedo stuck in the hull of the ship, and they need to close that door to save the rest of the ship, and someone needs to hold that switch, and there's a switch only on the inside for some reason, and also the door was closing so slowly, she could have simply jumped under it before it closed, and so it is really ridiculous how slow she was. Also before that, when the whole ship was under fire, everything was exploding, and she decided to go disarm the torpedo, because I guess an admiral with a degree in psychology is the best qualified person to try to disarm the torpedo. So she goes there personally, but she kind of walks slowly there. So that also made me laugh. That reminded me of the scene in Pirates of the Caribbean 3, in which that admiral guy also kind of walked slowly. But it made sense there because he was kind of gave up, so it made sense in that scene. But here the admiral just casually, calmly walks to disarm the torpedo when the clock is ticking. So that also made me laugh. And then they had to close that door, and someone had to stay inside. So the admiral stayed inside instead of Pike, and then Pike stands on the other side of this small door with a window, looking at it all, and then the torpedo explodes, killing the admiral. Good riddance. But then we see a shot from outside, and we see that like a third of the saucer section was gone because of that explosion. So that really made me laugh also, because you mean to tell me that explosion was strong enough to take out such a big chunk of the saucer section, and yet this puny door managed to hold all that explosion when it was right next to the torpedo, and that window, Pike was looking at it through the window, and he was totally fine after all of this, even though that same explosion destroyed the whole chunk of the ship. So this is yet another example of so bad it's good, because this is just laughably bad that it's comedic unintentionally.